Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Destiny's Princess. We have finished Hanbei's main story and both of his endings. Now we just have his sequel and date scenario to go through. Hopefully they'll be happier than his story was and there's endings. I was not happy with those at all. I'm really hoping there'll be some happier stories in this besides Hanbei's. Alright, so let's go ahead. Wait, sequel? How can there possibly be a sequel to that? He's dead. And, according to the one ending, we're also dead. How can there be a sequel? Unless it really is in the afterlife. Can we be in heaven with Hanbei? Let's see. You can just sit back, relax, and let me read you a story. This Age of Silence. It was a bright and clear afternoon, a few days after the demons had disappeared. Well, he's still alive. What did you do with that comb? Hanbei, who had looked to be asleep, suddenly spoke. I didn't know you were awake. I wasn't. I just woke up. Hanbei gave a slight smile and then glanced out at the daisies in the courtyard. I had a dream about the time I bought back those daisies. And that reminded me of the comb with the daisy pattern you had. It looked like it would be really pretty on you. I wanted to see you wear it. Oh, really? I smiled. After the fall of the castle, Hanbei sometimes made cute requests of me like that. Aww. But... Hanbei, that comb's gone. It must have burned up along with the castle. Might not have. We could go sift through the rubble a bit, see if we can stumble upon it. I see. Hanbei's face fell, with visible disappointment. I'm sorry. I wish I could show it to you, too. You don't need to apologize. Your hair is beautiful enough as it is. Hanbei slowly raised his hands and scooped up my hair. You're too sweet. I smiled and took Hanbei's hand, then slowly lowered it onto the blanket. Hanbei had already shut his eyes. He'd fallen back asleep. For a couple days now, he'd spent the majority of each day sleeping. Though it had only been a short time since he'd taken to bed, he'd grown quite thin. Even his hands felt bonier than before. I knew his time was quickly approaching. Oh, this is almost as depressing. As I pulled the blanket back over him, I heard a soft voice from the hallway. Princess! Yes? Please get some rest. You'll tire yourself out staying here all the time. No, I'm not tired at all. You feel free to have a break, though. Princess. Just as I'd started to protest, Hanbei interjected. What is it? I'm going to sleep for a while, so please, you go get some rest too. Can't I rest here alongside him? His eyes remained shut, as he spoke as if half in a daze. Come back when I wake up. How will I know when you wake up? Hanbei? He's asleep. Hanbei wore the thinnest tint of a smile as he slept. The handmaid giggled. Listen to Sir Hanbei. When he wakes up, I'll come get you right away. Get some sleep and then come back refreshed. I'm sure that'll make Sir Hanbei happy too. Maybe you're right. Making sure not to make any noise, I slowly got to my feet. I'm counting on you to look after him for a while then. Yes, of course. I returned to my room and lied down. I instantly closed my eyes. I was overcome with fatigue. And, not long after, an incomparable sadness. Hanbei. His life was running out. He didn't have much time left. Truthfully, I was afraid to leave his side for even an hour, for fear he might pass away. I wished I could let him see me wearing the comb as he had asked. How sad was it that I couldn't grant him even the simplest of wishes? With those thoughts running hazily through my mind, I fell asleep. Huh? When I woke up, outside it was already the color of night. I jumped up out of bed. Oh no, I overslept! Luckily, just as I finished dressing, a handmaid appeared in the corridor. Oh, Princess, have you been awake long? Only just now. How's Hanbei? I was just on my way to tell you. I frowned with worry. Did something happen? Oh my goodness, don't tell me his condition's worsened. No, nothing like that. but you should come quickly. Huh? Why? Because if you don't, he might change his mind. The maid was, for some reason, giggling happily. What do you mean? You'll see, just come. Still confused, I hurried to see Hanbei. Hanbei! When I threw open the door without waiting for a reply, I found him sitting up in bed. When he looked at me, the look on his face seemed somehow slightly embarrassed. I sat down beside him. The maid told me to hurry, so I thought something bad might have happened.
No, not at all. As you can see, I'm even better than usual.
I'm so relieved, but then what was so urgent?
Well, I think she probably wanted to make sure you came before I threw them away.
Threw what away? I cocked my head in confusion, and Hanbei let out a deep sigh.
I know I'm not very good at this sort of thing, but...
As he spoke, from under his pillow, Hanbei brought out something. It was a mysterious sort of craft made from a bunch of daisies. The stems were bound tightly together, and above that, bent every which way. Hanbei's face fell.
You probably can't tell, but it's supposed to be a hair comb.
A comb?
I mean, you see, I was going to get you a new one, but I didn't quite have the time.
Or the strength to go, I would imagine.
So, I thought I'd just add some flowers to any old comb, but with the current situation.
Well, that's true. Everything in the castle town's been destroyed by the demons.
I thought about getting a comb from someone else, but then I thought it might be a little strange. So then, in the end, you know, the children often make flower crowns, so...
Hanbei's bumbling attempt to explain was so funny, I hid my mouth with my sleeve. Oh, it's so cute. You thought if you could make crowns from flowers, why not combs too?
Exactly.
Hanbei's shoulders slumped.
The daisies in the courtyard had just taken root, so I asked some maidservants to help me pick some growing outside the castle. They taught me how to tie them together, but still, this isn't quite what I envisioned.
Hanbei looked at the comb in his hands with a grim smile.
I'm embarrassed at my utter unfamiliarity with all but the more academic pursuits. I hate that I wasn't able to give you even a single comb.
Nonsense! I took Hanbei's hand. I've never seen a comb this spectacular.
Princess.
Will you put it in my hair for me? I dropped my head forward. Hanbei raised his trembling hands. In fact, simply being out of bed was a struggle for him. I could hardly imagine the strength it had taken him to make this. When I raised my head, Hanbei looked at me for a long moment. Then he sighed with satisfaction. How do I look?
Beautiful. It looks even better on you than I thought.
We snuggled together. I had wondered what I could possibly do for Hanbei. My utter powerlessness had filled me with grief. But now I knew. Hanbei had shown me. It didn't matter how small or trivial the gift or gesture. As long as it came from the heart, anything would become a precious memory. I wanted us to do and share as much as we could in the time we had left. Perhaps trivial, but always heartwarming together. That would surely become our greatest treasures.
I'm glad I gave it to you after all.
Me too. This is the best present I've ever gotten. I'll treasure it as a precious gift from you. I'll keep it close to me every single day, forever and ever. But what about wilting? Hanbei let out a long, relieved breath and closed his eyes. He was probably slipping back asleep. I could hear his gentle, rhythmic breathing. And on his face was a happy, satisfied smile. Well, it was nicer than the main story, although... I'd rather have the afterlife. Something actually happy, not bittersweet like that. Alright, well, let's see the date scenario. That'll probably be earlier in the story. Dread and the Fugitive Mind.
Princess.
Upon catching sight of the man who'd come to my room, I automatically raised my guard. Yeah, this is before we really got into our relationship, apparently. He's here. I wondered what venomous words he'd have for me today, this black-hearted former fiancé of mine. Oh, does it matter what I say? I'll glare at him. He likes that. Hanbei, why are you here? I glared coldly at him.
My, that's a rather icy gaze to give your former fiancé. I'm a little hurt.
Hanbei's own cool smile belied his words. That's interesting. You don't seem to be suffering in the least.
Is that so?
Yes. In fact, you look rather like you're enjoying yourself.
Only an eccentric would enjoy receiving a cold glare from their beloved.
Really? I thought for sure you were precisely one such eccentric.
No, that's absurd. I can see there's no winning against you.
Don't be silly. Oh, why am I saying ho ho ho? And suddenly he's glaring at me.
We're not going to get anywhere like this.
Agreed. So why are you here?
Well, actually, there's something I'd like your help with. I'm looking for a book.
What kind of book?
A book about our national history. I can't seem to find it. And the secretary who used to be in charge of the library was killed by a demon.
I too had heard that the civilian in charge of the library had been bitten to death.
Since you've always loved reading, I thought you might know where it could be.
I see. For a moment, I remembered back. It was true I'd read a lot, but that was because my late fiancé had loved books. The reason I'd spent time in the library was because he was always cooped up in there. Although, all those memories were now just hazy feelings.
Princess, what's wrong?
Oh, sorry. As I'd been lost in thought, Hanbei had turned to me with a questioning look. It's nothing. Unfortunately, I haven't borrowed a book like that. Maybe it's gotten lost somewhere.
It's possible.
Well then, let me help you. It would be much harder trying to find it alone. No sooner had he opened the door to the library than Hanbei stopped in his tracks. What? Is something wrong?
Just overwhelmed. Every time I come here, it fills me with joy to see how many books there are that I haven't read. But at the same time...
Hanbei smiled bitterly.
Part of me is also sad that I already have read so many of them. I know that sounds strange, even to me, but...
I see. Both of those feelings of his were simultaneously correct and mistaken. My fiancé very possibly may have read through all the books in the room. There was also no doubt that Hanbei had hardly read any, since he'd only just come to this world. So, you were looking for a book about national history, right?
Yeah, that and one about local history too.
Got it. We'd better find them before it gets dark then. For a while after that, the two of us immersed ourselves in searching for the books. But as Hanbei said, they weren't in their usual spots, nor seemingly anywhere else in the library. If we still haven't found them at this point, someone else really might have taken them. Maybe we should ask around. Hanbei? When I looked over at Hanbei, he was seated cross-legged on the floor, lost in a book. My lips curved into a smile. I quietly sat down next to Hanbei, careful not to break his concentration. I found his rapt attention to the book both amusing and sweet. I can hardly believe this is the same man who's so mean to me all day. All night, you mean? His slender fingers flipping the pages, his downturned face and eyes. Watching him like that, it was very apparent he was a handsome man. Oh no, I was completely staring at him. Oops. As we'd both been distracted, the sun had started to set. I decided to scare him. Or softly call out to him. I really don't think he likes timidity, so I'm going to try to scare him. I drew in a breath. Wah! Did it really work, or is he pretending?
Princess, what's going on?
Seeing Hanbei flustered was so funny I broke into a grin. I'm glad you're enjoying that book, but it's almost sunset. Surprisingly, Hanbei looked a little embarrassed.
I I didn't notice. I'm sorry.
I really think someone must have borrowed the books if we haven't found them yet. Maybe we should ask around the castle.
That's a good idea. Let's hurry and...
Just as Hanbei started to speak, without warning, the door opened.
Well, this is an interesting choice of spot for a rendezvous.
Father. How many times am I going to do that?
Nobunaga.
Hanbei fell into a bow. This isn't a rendezvous. We were looking for something. What are you doing here?
I came to return some books.
As he spoke, Nobunaga held out several books. Oh, that's... All of the books we'd been so desperately searching for were among the stack. Seriously, you had them all this time? We were looking for those for hours.
Is the lord of the castle not allowed to borrow his own books?
Grinning, Nobunaga handed me the books. Yeah, there's really nothing we can say about that.
Well then, I'll be off. Don't stay in here too long. Hanbei here might get the wrong idea.
Why would he get the wrong idea from being in the library? With that last teasing remark, Nobunaga left the library. Hanbei watched him walk off with a frown. Hanbei, don't worry about what my father said.
I wonder what made Nobunaga read those books now.
Hanbei? Hanbei was staring at the books with his usual severe gaze.
I find him such a curious man. I never used to think that before.
Yeah, you're a different man now, Hanbei, and so is he. Hanbei took the books from my hands and then spoke flatly.
Princess, go tell someone to bring a lamp. I want to look over these books.
Okay, I will, but first...
You better go now. Like Nobunaga said, I may just get some unsavory ideas in my head.
Hanbei remarked sarcastically and then snorted. He was back to his cold, unapproachable self, so unlike the mild-mannered man from moments ago. I went ahead and left the room. As told, I bought back a light. After that, several hours passed. I wonder why Hanbei says those things. The minute I thought he might be a gentle, smart man, he showed such a childish side of himself. No sooner was he nice than he instantly turned cold. I really didn't understand him. You were out very late. Yeah. I vaguely replied to the handmaid's remark when she bought my after-dinner tea. I wondered if Hanbei had eaten. Considering how engrossed he had been in his book, it was hard to imagine he'd taken time for dinner. Can I ask you something? Of course. What is it? I'm sorry to trouble you, but could you make me some rice balls and tea? Hanbei is in the library doing some research. Oh my! Well then, you should bring him something. I know he'd be very happy. You think so? Of course! Encouraged by the maid's words, I brought Hanbei a supper to the library. Light seeped out from the crack in the floor. Hanbei, are you there? I called out, but there was no answer. He was probably too deep in his book to hear me. I bet he probably fell asleep reading the books, actually. I'm coming in. When I opened the door, I couldn't help but smile at the sight before me. Of course. A book still in his hands, Hanbei was fast asleep. Your mouth's open. With a whisper, I gently poked his cheek. If only he were always like this. We might actually get along. If he were always sleeping? Yeah, you'd get along great if he was always sleeping. That might be a little boring, though. I set down the tray, careful not to make any noise. Seeing no reason to wake him, for a while I just gazed at his innocent sleeping face. Aww. That was cute. Yep, those are very short. So, why in the world do I have only 2 gold crowns? How do I get the other 2 gold? I don't know what the deal is. I had 100% likability. And all the galleries filled out. And we read everything. I don't know what the deal is. Alright, well, in the next episode, we will start reading Kotoro's route. Because he's the one who has the most votes on Patreon. His story was alright, but I definitely really did not like those endings. They were just very unsatisfying to me. Well, you know, in addition to being completely depressing. So I'm really, really hoping we'll have some happier stories with other guys. I hope there's no more guys that have 2 bad endings. I hope the rest of them have at least 1 good ending per guy. Please. And if anybody wants to tell me if they're all depressing endings, please make sure you write spoiler before your post so people don't accidentally see if they don't want to. And there weren't enough CGs. There's barely any CGs in this game, if Hanbei's route is an indication. I was really struggling to come up with thumbnails that didn't all look the same. I'd really have liked to have seen more pretty pictures. Maybe the other guys will have more, but somehow I doubt it. But the ones that they do have look really nice. They look a lot better than their character avatars. Alright, well, like I said, Kotaro will be next. I hope to see you in my future videos, and I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show some support. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye bye, everybody.